jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulasi Maharani ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga.
Hare Hare.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, The Status Quo, Chapter 3, Krishna's pastimes out of Vrindavan.
Yeah.
Krishna's pastimes out of Vrindavan, text 26.
Prabhu, can you make the font a little big?
Okay, let's see I'm not sure how to do that. Does that help or?
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know how to,
It's okay.
how to do it.
For me, it's
If you go to settings up top, this next to menu,
yeah, settings,
and you click on that, I think there's something. I think it says font there, and you can increase.
Where is it?
It's next to English. It's between menus and menu and English.
Yeah,
menu. I'm
yeah,
sorry,
next to English.
I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
okay.
No worries.
No, English, next to English.
Sorry, I'm not very
It's okay.
Font size. Okay, there it is. Is that better? Is that any different?
A little bit.
Let me try again. Menu. Settings.
That's enough.
Is that better?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's enough.
Just give me a second here to...
You need to move up.
Okay, anyway, we'll go with that.
You need to move up a little bit.
Okay.
That's enough. That's enough.
Okay, sorry for my low-tech
sorry for
skills.
my asking, Prabhu.
Yeah, that's okay. On a related note, I'm still waiting for the BBT to print all of Prabhupada's books in large text versions. But okay. Tachasnatva pichindevan rishim's chaiva tarambasa tarpayitvat viprebhyo gavo bahu gunadadhu. Tachasnatva pichindevan rishim's chaiva tarambasa tarpayitvat viprebhyo gavo bahu gunadadhu. Tatrasnatva pichindevan rishim's chaiva tarambasa tarpayitvat viprebhyo gavo bahu gunadadhu. Everyone can chant.
Tatrasnatva pitrun devan rishim shaiva tadambhasha tarpayitva viprebhyo gavo bahuguna dudhu.
Hare Krishna. Tatta snadva pitan devam rishim shaiva tat ambasha tarpaitat bhata viprebho Gavo bahu guna deva daha.
Hare Krishna. Tatra sanatva pitrin devan rishim sheva tad ambasa tarpayitvad viprebhyo kao bahu guna dadu. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Okay. Word for word translation. Tatra, there. Snatva, by taking bath. Pitrin, forefathers. Devan, demigods. Rishin, great sages. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Tat, of that. Ambasa, by the water. Tarpayitva, by pleasing. Ata, thereupon. Viprebhya, unto the brahmanas. Gava, cows. Bahuguna, greatly useful. Dadhu, gave in charity. Translation. Oops. Let's see. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. After arriving there, all of them took bath, and with the water of this place of pilgrimage, they offered their respects to the forefathers, demigods, and great sages, and thus satisfied them. They gave cows to the brahmanas in royal charity. Purport. Among the devotees of the Lord, there are several divisions, namely Nitya Siddhas and Sadhana Siddhas. The Nitya Siddha devotees never fall down to the region of the material atmosphere, even though they sometimes come onto the material plane to execute the mission of the Lord. The Sadhana Siddha devotees are chosen from the conditioned souls. Out of the sadhana devotees, there are mixed and pure devotees. The mixed devotees are sometimes enthusiastic about fruitive activities and are habituated to philosophical speculation. The pure devotees are free from all these mixtures and are completely absorbed in the service of the Lord, regardless of how and where they are situated. Pure devotees of the Lord are not enthusiastic to put aside their service to the Lord in order to go visit holy places of pilgrimage. A great devotee of the Lord in modern times, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, has sung like this, quote, "To visit holy places of pilgrimage is another bewilderment of the mind, because devotional service to the Lord at any place is the last word in spiritual perfection." Unquote. For pure devotees of the Lord who are completely satisfied with the transcendental loving service of the Lord, there is hardly any necessity to visit the various places of pilgrimage. But those who are not so advanced have the prescribed duties of visiting pilgrimage sites and regularly performing the rituals. The part of the princely order of the Yadu dynasty who went to Prabhas performed all duties to be done in a place of pilgrimage and offered their pious actions to their forefathers and others. As a rule, every human being is indebted to God, the demigods, great sages, other living entities, people in general, forefathers, etc., for various contributions received from them. Thus, everyone is obliged to repay the debt of gratitude. The Yadus who went to the Prabhas pilgrimage site performed their duties by distributing land, gold, and well-nourished cows in royal charity, as described in the following verse. Tatra snatva pichindevan rishins chaiva tarambasa tarpayitva viprebhyo gavo bahu gunadadhu. After arriving there, all of them took bath, and with the water of this place of pilgrimage, they offered their respects to the forefathers, demigods, and great sages, and thus satisfied them. They gave cows to the Brahmanas in royal charity. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine, Namaste Saraswate Deve, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for coming today. These pastimes connected with the disappearance of Krishna are not very palatable on an emotional level, not very palatable to the devotees to hear about. Also in Mahaprabhu's pastimes, there are devotees who didn't want to be present or didn't want to hear about his disappearance. Therefore, there's not much description of it in, for example, Chaitanya Charitamrita. But at the same time, it's the pastimes of the Lord. And Janma Karma Chime Divyam Evam Yoveti Tattvata. As aspiring devotees, it's incumbent upon us to try to understand them in truth. And there also are amazing and very deep philosophical truths and sources of inspiration to be gained from it. So therefore, Srila Vyasadeva put it in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first of all, and therefore we study it. So this is carrying on from the previous verse. On not Wednesday, on Tuesday, there was a very nice, the devotee gave a very nice description of the whole pastime of the Yadu dynasty being cursed, and they went to Prabhas and the fighting and everything. So I won't go over that because she described that very nicely. But in the purport today, Prabhupada is carrying on the idea that is mentioned in that verse, that there were some distinctions among the different members of the Yadu dynasty and the different dynasties who went. Some of them were of the apparently some of them were of the category of Nitya Siddhas, and some of them were of the category of Sadhana Siddhas, and maybe some of them were pure, and some of them were mixed. So if we look like the 10th canto, for example, in the very beginning of Krishna's pastimes, we know how Mother Earth took the form of a cow and went to Lord Brahma and put her plea, and then Lord Brahma went to the shore of the milk ocean and prayed, and by meditation he got the message from Lord Vishnu, and he told it to the demigods. Yes, Krishna already knows all about the problems going on, and he's already planning on coming. So as part of that plan, he said, all of you demigods, you expand by your angsa, by your plenary portion or part and parcel. By your angsa, you expand, and you take birth in the Yadu dynasty to take part in these pastimes. So some of these devotees, the Yadus, are eternal associates of Krishna. Some of them are demigods who have come for the sake of that pastime, to help Krishna's pastimes and also to purify themselves. And the verse, Tuesday's verse, it actually just says Vrishni Bojandakadaya, that the Vrishnis, the Bojas, the Andakas, the different dynasties, they all went to Prabhas. But in the translation, and in Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport, and in today's purport, he clarifies that for those topmost pure devotees, there's actually no need for them to go to Prabhas and do any of these ritualistic things. He says there's actually two possible understandings of this. One is that the Yadu dynasty members who went to Prabhas, because the Yadu dynasty is mostly eternal associates of Krishna. So one interpretation from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is that the Yadu dynasty that went to Prabhas were actually an expansion of Krishna's Yogamaya. Just like when Brahma stole the cowherd boys, he didn't actually steal the cowherd boys, he stole the Maya imitation cowherd boys. Or when Ravana stole Sita, he didn't actually stole Sita, he stole the Maya Sita. So he said the ones who went, the pure devotees have no interest in going to Prabhas and doing some ritualistic ceremonies. So one interpretation is that the Yadus actually, they all stayed in Dwarka with Krishna in unmanifest form. And there was like an illusory representation that went to Prabhas. He said that's one possible interpretation. And he said, he also says that just as Krishna, just like it said, Vrindavana Parityaja Padamekam Nagachati, that Krishna leaves Vrindavan. So similarly to Yadus, they never leave Dwarka. That's their eternal spiritual world for them. But the other interpretation is that some of these Yadu dynasties also may be mixed devotees, like demigods who took appearance in the Yadu dynasty. So for them, they actually should have followed Krishna's instructions and actually go to Prabhas and do these ritualistic things. So in any case, this is going on, the Yadus, whether they were illusory or just a select, but in any case, they went. And also, I certainly can't say who was who and what was what, and who's a demigod and who's an eternal associate. But in any case, these devotees, they went to Prabhas, and on Krishna's instruction, they went to Prabhas and did these ritualistic ceremonies. Very pious activities. Snatva, from today's verse, Snatva, they bathe there. You bathe in a holy place. And at Prabhas, there's, I can't remember, is it the Saraswati River? There's a confluence of three rivers, just like the Triveni in Triveni of Yamuna, Ganga, and Saraswati. This is a second Triveni of Saraswati and
Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati.
yeah, Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati. But here at Prabhas, there's three different rivers, Saraswati and two others that are also unmanifest. So that's also a confluence of three rivers. And even today, Prabhas is an important place of Tirtha. The Somnath temple is considered very important amongst Hindus as one of the famous Shiva temples, one of the Jyotirlingas. So, and even then, very important place of pilgrimage. So Krishna sent them there. And they went there, they bathed, snatva, picha. They offered respects to the forefathers and pinda to the forefathers, because that's also required for all people in Vedic culture, the forefathers. Deva, they're there to worship the devatas, to worship the demigods, to pay respect to the demigods. And they gave charity. Gavo bahu guna dadu. Gavo, they gave cows. What kind of cows? Bahu guna means cows with very excellent qualities. So that means they were very beautifully decorated. In those days, when a king would give you a cow, you would not just get a cow, but you would get a cow with, pearls and gems around its neck, and its horns and its hooves would be plated with solid gold. And so excellent qualities. And they were also all young cows giving full in the prime of their milk giving. So Bahuguna, the best quality cows they were giving to all the Brahmanas. So they were doing all of these pious acts. And Prabhupada explains here in today's purport, and in many places, he explains this, that this is required in general. As a general rule, this is required for everyone. Because just existing in this world, no matter how simply or independently you want to live, just existing in this world puts you in debt to so many living entities. Just your breathing air means you're indebted to Vayu, who is the Lord of the air. You're breathing in air and taking oxygen. That means you have a debt to pay to Vayu. What to speak of taking that air and poisoning it, polluting it. But even if you don't do that, you owe a debt. I didn't create the oxygen I'm breathing. So I'm indebted to Vayu, who's supplying that. When I drink water to provide my life, they say the human body is, I can't remember, 70, 80% water, right? So, and all living entities dependent on water. So I'm drinking water. I didn't create that water. I'm indebted to Vayu. And the rains come, I'm indebted to Indra. And the sun is there. The whole base of energy of life is based on sunlight. the sunlight comes and makes it warm enough for us to survive. And the sunlight comes, and through photosynthesis, all the food, everything we eat, even for the meat eaters, are dependent on photosynthesis to produce all the food, all the nourishment, all the calories, all the caloric intake is basically just transformation of the sunlight. So we're indebted to Suryadev. And if a person who has this debt, this rina, this debt, and does not pay it back is a rascal, is a thief. What Bhagavad Gita, stena eva sauchite. Such a person who takes these benefits from the devatas but doesn't pay them back is a thief. This is from a Prabhupada lecture where he explains this. He says, this is sinful. If you take something from a person and you do not repay it, that is sinful. Rina. It is called rina. Rina literally, I'm interjecting here. Rina literally
Rina.
debt. That you owe something, that's rina. But he says this is sinful. Rina means sinful. To owe something to someone and not pay it back is sinful. He continues. So there are so many debts. First to the demigods, then to the rishis, saintly persons, because we get knowledge, Vedic knowledge from the rishi, we must be debtor. Guru rina, debtor to the spiritual master, to the sages, to the saintly persons, because we are getting knowledge from them. Therefore, the Vyasa Puja is there. Once in a year, the disciples are worshiping the spiritual master and trying to repay what he has received from the spiritual master. Devarshi Bhuta. Similarly, in our ordinary dealings also, you are my friend, I am your friend. You're getting some help from me, I am getting some help from you. So we are debtors, obligation. Devarshi Bhuta Apta. Apta means relatives or family. We are indebted to the father, mother, elderly family members. In this way, we are implicated with so many debts. So everyone has these debts. And it said, let's see if I could remember, debts to the demigods is repaid by offering yagya, sacrifice. Debts to the family members, and especially the parents, is repaid by getting married and having children and carrying on the line. Debt to the, I'm trying to remember now. Debt to the rishis is paid. See, I can't remember. There's different ones. One of them is by practicing brahmacharya, is repaying the sages, I think. And anyway, in this way it goes on. And the demigods, the family members, the friends, and all living entities in general. So there are different pujas, different yagyas meant to repay this debt. And if a person doesn't, like Prabhupada says, we are implicated with so many debts. And if you don't pay it back, then you're a debtor, and a debtor is punished because that's actually sinful. So everyone in this world, in general, as a generalization, has to repay these debts. And in one sense, all of the problems we have in society today, and there's an unlimited list of them, at the root of this is not repaying our debts. If we don't repay our debts, we're taking so much from Mother Nature, from the demigods, from other people unfairly. When the rich people exploit the workers, they're incurring a debt that they're not repaying, and therefore they're going to have to suffer. Or if one country steals another's resources, then that's incurring a debt. And if it's not repaid, if it's not remedies, they'll have to be suffering in return. So many things. What to speak of taking from the demigods, taking from the sages. So anyway, these debts are going on, and everyone in the world must repay these debts. Otherwise, great karmic suffering will incur from that. Except the pure devotees, they do not need to. Therefore, the whole point of this pastime, as Prabhupada and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, is that this is for the mixed devotees, for the sadhana devotees, for the impure devotees. This go to Prabhas, do the sacrifice, do this pious act, that pious act. So these things are so important, but not so much for the pure devotees. Let's see. One other thing about these other different types of pious acts. This is also described in the previous canto, second canto, from the purport of 2.821. Prabhupada writes, pious acts are prescribed in the supplementary Vedas, the Smritis, which specifically mention digging tanks and wells for the water supply of the people in general, to plant trees on the public roads, to construct public temples and places of worship, to establish places of charity where the poor destitutes can be provided with foodstuff, and similar activities are called porta, or meritorious work. So these are recommended, but they're not recommended for the devotees, because they're anyabilashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanavirtam. They have given up all connection with fruitive activities, with speculative activities. And anukulena krishnanu shilanam bhakti uttamam. They have devoted themselves exclusively to serving and trying to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, they don't have these same debts that the ordinary materialistic persons have. Prabhupada would often talk about criticizing specifically Mayavadis, impersonalists, who he would talk about and say, oh, they say it's all one, it's all illusion, or whatever nonsense they're talking. But just see, they always come back down to the mundane platform of mundane welfare work. And he would specifically criticize the Ramakrishna mission. He said, oh, this so-called Ramakrishna Gadadhar Chatterjee and his foolish disciple Vivekananda, they say it's all one, this world is all illusory, but just see, they always come back to building schools, building hospitals, this mundane welfare work, as proof that they're not on the platform of actual transcendence, that they always patantito nadrita yusmarangraya. Because of neglecting Krishna, they always fall down to the material platform. So if someone's not a pure devotee, yes, they need to do these pious activities. But for one who's actually a pure devotee, it's not so required. Just like those eternal associates of Krishna in the Yadu dynasty actually don't need to go to Prabhas and do the bathing, the this, the that, especially bathing. Prabhupada quotes from Narottam Das Thakur. What's that? Tirtha Yatra Parishrama. That Tirtha Yatra, going to place of pilgrimage, Parishrama, is simply hard labor. Kevala Manera Brahma. Kevala means it's only a Manera Brahma. It's only a kind of bewilderment of the mind going on pilgrimage. Sarva, why? Sarva Siddhi Govinda Charan. Because Sarva Siddhi, all perfection can be gained simply by taking shelter of the lotus feet of Govinda. So, of course, don't misunderstand. As an act of devotional service, we'll also go to Vrindavan, we'll also go to Mayapur. But the mundane conception of going on pilgrimage, that you go and you bathe, what's the yasyatma budhe kunape tridaptuke swadit kala tradishu boma ejid. No, yasyatma budhe kunape tridaptuke swadit kala tradishu boma ejidi yatirta budhe salile nakarhichit jane shabigeshu sab eva gokara. That yasyatma budhi kunape tridaptuke, that if you're thinking that, oh, my body is just mucus, bile, and air, or earth, water, fire, air, ether, or you think this body is muscle, bone, blood, phlegm, lymph, nerve, digestive system, this system. If you think it's just material elements, then, and what's the other one? Yes, Swadi Kalatradi Shuboma EG. And if you think that your land, your place of birth is worshipable, that, oh, I'm an American, so make America great again, or whatever nonsense you're spewing of your nationalism. Or Natir Tabude Kalile Nakar Hichet, that if you go to a holy place simply to go, you go there, you bathe in the water, just like the Yadus go to Prabhas, bathe in the water, and you think, oh, I bathed in the river, my business is finished, and go home. Then Jane Shabigeshu Saeva Gokra, such a person who thinks in these ways is actually no better than a cow or an ass. And again, so no one's confused, we go to Vrindavan, we go to Mayapur, because that's also recommend acts of devotional service. But we don't do it the way these materialistic people do. Just like another example in the prayers of Lord Brahma, when he's offering, after he's realized what a fool he's been, challenging Lord Krishna, and Brahma starts explaining the path of devotional service, and he gives the famous verse, Gyane prayasam urupastinamanta eva. Gyane prayasam urupastinamanta eva. Jivanti sanmukritam bhavati avartam. Stane stita shruti gatam tanuvan manobi. This is important. Stane stita. Stane stita literally means you remain in your place. The general meaning of that is that in order to perform devotional service, you don't need to change your employment. You don't need to change your varna. You don't need to change your ashram. You don't need to change your situation. You can, in wherever you are, whatever you are, you perform devotional service. But Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti also explains that stanestita means you remain where you are. There's no need to go on Tirtha Yatra. You just stay where you are. You don't need to go somewhere else. You simply perform devotional service. You give up your materialistic ways. You give up your pseudo-intellectual speculation. And that's pure devotional service, stanestita. So all of these things which are important for the materialists are not important for the devotees. Because again, as Narottam Das Thakur says, Sarva Siddhi Govinda Charan, simply by worshiping Krishna, all perfection, Sarva Siddhi. So again, this is the pure devotees. This sort of thing is not so required. We may do them in some simplistic and ritualistic way. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went to offer pinda to his father. Of course, that was also the excuse to meet his spiritual master. But we could do these little things here and there, but these are not the heart of our life. These are not the heart of our practice. Our main thing, our actual thing is devotional service to Krishna. And if we neglect those things, there's no tremendous loss involved for us. And for those other devotees who are mixed, it may become important. This is from the Krishna book, also talking about Lord Brahma. Prabhupada writes, the devotees of Vrindavan are also spontaneous lovers. They are not required to strictly follow regulative principles because they are already naturally developed in transcendental love for Krishna. Regulative principles are required for persons who have not achieved such a position of spontaneous love. Brahma is also a devotee of the Lord, but he is an ordinary devotee, subject to following regulative principles. He prays to Krishna to give him the chance to take birth in Vrindavan so that he might be elevated to the platform of spontaneous love. So these other things are important for materialistic persons to keep them from being complete animals. They may be important for mixed devotees to keep them from behaving licentiously or behaving improperly. But for pure devotees, not so important. And again, going back to Rupa Goswami's description of pure devotional service, Anyabhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadyanavritam, that pure devotional service is specifically excludes these kind of fruitive activities. Planting trees is excellent, digging wells is excellent, but this is not our devotional service. These are mundane activities. Some other places where this is discussed in the prayers of Padyavali, there's a really excellent prayer. This is Sandhya Vandana Bhajamastu Bhavato Bosnana tubhyam namo. Bodeva pitarascha tarpana vido. Naham kshamaksham yatam. Yatra kwapi nasadya yadavakulo. Tam shasya kamsa dvisha. Smaram smaram agam harami tadalam. Manye kimanye name. Oh, my prayers 3 times a day. Because this is one of the duties, right? Trisanyam. To offer prayers 3 times a day. Oh, my prayers 3 times a day. All glories to you. Oh, bathing. I offer my obeisances unto you. O demigods, O forefathers, please excuse me for my inability to offer you respects. Now, wherever I sit, I can remember the great descendant of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, and thereby I can free myself from all sinful bondage. I think this is sufficient for me. So this devotee, I'm not sure who spoke it, but it's included in Srila Rupa Goswami's Padyavali. This devotee is thinking, worshiping Krishna is enough. I don't need to do these other things. It's not required. It's like one time Prabhupada was on a morning walk in Bombay. And while they were walking, there was one person doing yoga asans, I think at the beach. And he was standing on his head, and Prabhupada said, oh, Sirshasan, this is actually very good for your health to do Sirshasan. But then he took a few more steps and he spoke again. And he said, but not required. So all these things, they're good. Doing yoga asans is good. Digging wells is good. Planting trees, offering pinta to the fourth arthas is good, but not required. As this devotee says, I think this is sufficient for me. And actually, if you think it's not sufficient that you need to do those things, that's actually a misunderstanding, a borderline offensive view of devotional service, thinking that, oh, devotional service by itself is not sufficient, that I need to add something else. That's a denigration of the potency of devotional service. And then there's, let's see now, another nice verse from the 4th canto. Not only because in ecstasy you think devotional service enough, but a philosophical explanation of why these other things are not necessary. Appeasing the Devarshi Bhutaptananam Pichinam, appeasing the living entities, your friends, your family, the demigods, not required. But why? Yata Toror Mula Nishechanena. Yata means like. So just like a tree. Yata Toror Mula Nishechanena. Tripyanti Tat Skanda Bujo Pashaka. Pranopaharach Chayatendriyanam Tataiva Sararhanam Achuteja. Just like a tree has all of its branches, but if you want to nourish that tree, if you want to give life to that tree, if you want to water that tree, you don't take the water and say, okay, here's some water on this branch, here's some water on this branch, and you take a medicine dropper and put, oh, here's some water for this leaf, for this leaf, for this leaf. First of all, you'll never be successful in putting water on every single leaf. Number one, you won't be successful, even if you want to do that. Number two, even if you were successful at it, that will not nourish the tree, because that's not the nature of how a tree gains nourishment. But if you take the water and you pour it on the root, mula nishechanena, if you put the water on the root of the tree, then automatically the roots absorb the water and the trunk gets the water, and every branch and every twig and every bud and every leaf will automatically get the water. And the other example in that verse, pranopaharach chayatendriyanam, just like all the senses are nourished by feeding the stomach. And this is the other example. Prabhupada would tell this story. And actually, Shakespeare also includes this story in his play Coriolanus, that all of the senses of the body got together and had a meeting. And the senses decided to go on strike. because the brain said, oh, I'm the source of all intelligence. The hand said, I do all the work. The leg said, oh, I carry you everywhere. And why are we're doing all this? We're all so great. We're all so highly qualified. But whenever we get some food, we have to give it to the stomach. And the stomach doesn't do anything. It just takes the food in. So they said, that's it. We're going on strike. So they stopped feeding the stomach. And after a day or two, what happens? The brain, with no food, the brain becomes foggy. The hands become weak and can no longer lift. And the legs start stumbling because they're not feeding the stomach. And then they realize, when we feed the stomach, all of us separate senses are automatically nourished. This is the other very excellent example, that as the whole body is nourished by feeding the stomach, if we serve Krishna, then automatically we'll be nourished, and not just us, but the whole universe will be nourished by that. And actually, this is why devotional service is the only actual source of pleasure. That's why all other material pleasure is false pleasure, because it's not nourishing the root. It's trying to bypass the root and search after a facsimile of pleasure in some artificial way, but it doesn't actually nourish us because it doesn't go through the root. But if we serve Krishna, then Krishna is pleased. And when Krishna is pleased, we, as his constitutional parts and parcels, automatically become pleased, automatically become happy without a separate endeavor. Another example Prabhupada said is like, if you're looking at your face in the mirror, and I don't want to single out women because nowadays some men also are applying cosmetics. So you want to decorate, if you want to decorate your face and you look at your face in the mirror and you take your lipstick and you draw the lipstick on your lips in the mirror, and you take the mascara and you put it on your image of your eyelashes in the mirror, and you take the rouge and you smear it on the cheeks of the image in the mirror. This is foolishness, and you're looking, oh, I'm becoming so beautiful, but you're actually not. But if you decorate your face, if you put the lipstick, the rouge, the kajal, the whatever on your actual face, then the reflection in the mirror automatically, without a separate endeavor, is now decorated. So similarly, we understand when we serve Krishna, even if the most selfish person should understand this, that the best way to serve myself is by serving Krishna. Of course, we don't want to think in a selfish way, but this is the reality, that the best way to please yourself, the best way to serve yourself, the best way to enrich yourself is by offering that to Krishna. Even if you want to think materialistically, that's actually the case. And then there's the verse that Prabhupada refers to in today's purport. Devarshi bhutapta nrinam patrinam na kinkaro nayam rinicha rajan sarvatmanayas sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam parihritya kartam. O King, I think this is 11th canto. O King, one who has given up all material duties and has taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, who offers shelter to all, is not in here, now it's saying it very specifically, is not indebted to the demigods, great sages, ordinary living beings, relatives, friends, mankind, or even one's forefathers who has passed away. Since all such classes of living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, one who has surrendered to the Lord's service has no need to serve such persons separately. So all these other debts that the mixed devotees had to do in Prabhas and the pure devotees had no need to do, and therefore they could remain with Krishna in Dwaraka. The pure devotees have no need for this. As devotees, where we don't have to become socially irresponsible, and there's nothing wrong with some basic care for friends, family members, social responsibilities, all these things. But we know that this is just to keep everything smooth and simple in our life. but the actual essence of our desire, the actual essence of our motivation is only pleasing Krishna. Again, going back to Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Dhyanavritam. I can't remember now if it's Jiva Goswami or Srila Sanatana Goswami commenting on that verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. They explain that Anyabhilashita Shunyam, it doesn't necessarily mean that a pure devotee can have absolutely no other desire, because a person can be a pure devotee, but if they're dehydrated, they may think, oh, I want a glass of water. Say, oh, that's that's another desire. But he says, no, that's not really another desire. It's a desire, but it doesn't at all impinge on their central desire, their main motivation to serve and please Krishna without anything else. So if they have a desire for a glass of water, or I have to go to the bathroom, or I have some illness I need to take care of, just like even the Brijabasis, if there was some demon, or just like Govardhan Pujas coming. So when the rains came, naturally, they say, Krishna save us, right? But this is not a deviation from Anyabhilashita Shunyam, because they're still exclusively focused on Krishna. Just these other desires come and go and don't hurt that prime motivation. So, and that's why this classification of being a pure devotee, we throw around this term pure devotee, but it's actually a position that's available to all of us. That we may have other desires, in our heart, but if our central desire, if our only actual motivating desire is for devotional service, then that's pure devotional service, even if other desires may flit in and out or come and go circumstantially. So if your main desire, if you're not interested in enriching yourself materially through fruitive activities, or expanding your consciousness through some mundane speculation, even if desires flit in and out, and if on the other hand you're anukulyena krishnanushilanam, that if your only central desire is the pleasure of Krishna, pleasing Krishna in the manner that your spiritual master is directing you, then that's pure devotional service. And then we can understand these other mundane things, giving in charity, planting trees, nice, but not required. What's required is pleasing Krishna. And because Krishna is the root, that you say just pleasing Krishna, only Krishna, and you make it sound exclusive. But actually, when you say only Krishna, that's the most inclusive thing, because everything is Krishna or Krishna's energy. So by saying only Krishna, you're naturally including everything. It's the most inclusive thing and the most satisfying thing, and the only satisfying thing, and the only charity, the only real charity. If someone's starving, I'm going to give them food. Even if someone's poor, I may give them a little money. But the only real charity that it will ultimately benefit is the charity of Krishna consciousness. Just like Prabhupada said, just like violence, committing violence doesn't mean just punching someone in the nose. But if you don't give them Krishna consciousness, that's committing violence. So that's the negative side. That if you don't give Krishna consciousness, that's violence. And on the other side, if you do give Krishna consciousness, that's the best charity. That's the best welfare work. That's the best pious activity. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everybody, for your kind attention. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. If there's any questions or comments, or discussion, we can do that now. Oh, before questions, one thing I wanted to remind everyone, today is the Amavasya. So Amavasya means that today is the anniversary of the day that the Brijabasis started planning their Indra Yagya. And little Krishna went to his father and said, oh, Pita, what are you doing? What's this yagya? Is it some ritualistic? Is it traditional? What's the meaning of it?
Yeah.
What's the purpose? So that's today, the Amavasya is the anniversary of that happening. That Krishna approached and he preached to them, and he preached
Yes.
karma mimamsa philosophy to bewilder them a little bit, and ultimately to convince them. What's the point? You don't
You
need
do.
to worship the demigods, right? Same thing we've been discussing. You don't need to worship Indra. You worship me through Govardhan
Yeah,
Hill,
that's right.
right? Same point. So that's today, Amavasya. And the Pratipat, that's Saturday, that's the day when the Brijavasis actually did the Govardhan Puja. So Pratipat is the actual day of Govardhan Puja. And then that's the Pratipat. Then on the
You said Damodar Leela happened today.
yeah, Damodar Leela also. Actually, there's many things
Please tell the
connected with this
text.
particular day. What else? Yes, on the Dvitiya, then Krishna and his he had his sister cousin. Dvitiya means Bratra Dvitiya, which is day on which sisters worship their brothers. So they all had the day after Govardhan Puja, after a huge feast on Govardhan Puja. The next day there was another huge feast prepared by Krishna's cousin for Krishna and all of his friends and relatives and all of the youngsters. So they had another amazing, delicious feast down by the bank of the Yamuna. And the next day, Tritiya, that's when Indra's anger boiled over and he started sending the rains, and he drowned Vrindavan in rains for up through to Navami. So what's that? 7 days from 3, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 7 days until the Navami. And then finally he desisted from his rains. Then on the Dasami, the day after those rains ended, when Krishna was defeated, then on the Dasami, all of the Brijavasis had a big meeting, Ishtagosti. And this is described in the Krishna book chapter, Wonderful Krishna, that all the Brijavasis had an Ishtagosti, a meeting, and they got together and said, who is this boy Krishna? He's so amazing. All of the demons come and he defeats them, and this happens and that happens. And they're describing all of the beautiful pastimes of Krishna and wondering, who is this boy Krishna? Is he, Prabhupada would say they were speculating, oh, maybe, perhaps he's some demigod, we don't know. So that's Wonderful Krishna. That happened on the Dasami. Then on the morning of the Ekadasi day, Indra was so ashamed of himself that early in the morning, Krishna woke up very early on the Ekadasi, and he snuck out of the home before anyone else was awake. And the external reason, he thought, oh, Govardhan Hill suffered so much from the rains of Indra, and rain and thunderbolts and lightning bolts. So the pretense was, oh, let me go out and inspect Govardhan Hill and see how Govardhan Hill is doing. And of course, Govardhan Hill was fine. Govardhan Hill was feeling nothing but pure ecstasy the entire time because it was being held up by Krishna's hand. But that was the pretense. The real reason was because Indra was so mortified after having offended Krishna and the Brijavasis in that way that he wanted to apologize. But because he was also a little puffed up, he was ashamed to apologize in front of a big crowd of people. So he went just him and Mother Surabhi, and he approached Krishna in that solitary place by Govardhan Hill. And he offered his prayers, and Surabhi offered her prayers. And Indra actually offered the position of Indra to Krishna. And that's why Krishna is called Govinda. Govinda means Gava Indra. He's the Indra of the cows of the cowherd land and the cowherd people. And that's the Ekadasi. And then on the Dwadasi is the day when Nanda Maharaj was kidnapped by the foolish servants of Varuna. So anyway, that's the timeline of Govardhan Hill. But I just thought it was nice that today was the day when Krishna said, don't worship the demigods. You have to worship me.
That was good.
So anyway, sorry for dragging that out a little more. Any questions or comments we can take now?
Thank you very much, Prabhu. for all these nice things you said today. What is that? Yeah, Krishna said, don't worship. Uh, he was doing yajna. I don't know what is the point of doing yajna.
Right.
Pray for me.
Yeah, that's such a fun discussion, such a great
It's a
discussion
fun
that
discussion.
Krishna has with
Tells his
Nanda.
father. He tells his
Yeah.
father that. That is the main thing.
Yeah, he actually said to him, he said, don't think that because you're the
Yeah.
father and I'm the child that you shouldn't explain this. No, you have to discuss it rationally. It's very nice.
That was nice.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah,
Discussion?
nourishing to the stomach also. That was really good thing. And
Oh
if
yeah.
the
Yeah,
stomach
it's a
won't
terrific
take it,
example.
nothing will work. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, it's there. The Vedic literature has it. Shakespeare has it. I think a lot of cultures actually use
Yeah.
have some version of that
Mm.
story or fable or whatever you want to call it.
All those things are very, very nice things he's told us today, Prabhu. It's really good. See, the Bhagavatam, the more and more you hear, that is so nectar. That's it.
Yes. Yes, Drona Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Acharya Prabhu. Wonderful class. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. One of the things that comes up from time to time is that I guess there's a custom that if, say, somebody dies in your family, a relative dies in your family, it's stated that you shouldn't go to the temple for a certain number of days. And
Yeah.
this was once brought up. So this was brought up. We recently had a course on deity worship. The Sri Kavacha Prabhu from the deity ministry was giving it. So we asked him this question, and he said that if you're engaged in regular devotional service, this doesn't apply to you.
Right.
So along the lines of what you were saying with the today about different rules and regulations, that devotional service is superior to all of these considerations. And I know that sometimes is a point of confusion. We've had that this pop up from time to time. Of course, if a person is in mourning and mentally they need to take some time off, that is completely understandable.
Right.
But if a person, there's nothing more pure than devotional service. It's not that staying away from devotional service is going to be more purifying and following that particular ritual or regulation. It just hearing classes like this, I think, are very helpful. Just because sometimes there are misunderstandings with regards to what do we follow. Is bhakti just one of the aspects of ritual? Just another, so I do my bhakti, but it's he just reinforcing this understanding as you were doing today of bhakti is primary, and everything else is secondary considerations. So thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, thank you. I also liked your explanation and that devotee's explanation about being off the altar after the death in a family. And, we're not smart to Brahmas, but on the other hand, like you also said that, if there is a surplus of pujaris, to take a few days off to either mourn or remember or meditate on a person dear to you, that's also not crazy. That's not also not a crazy thing to do either. So like everything, it always takes especially when you get into things that are smart-ish, it always takes a little intelligence and a little, sort of, check in with reality to figure out how to balance them. But I like how you described that about the being off the altar. And there's so many things like that. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, a really nice class. And it makes me think that in this verse it says that when we do the devotional service, we don't have to think about any debts. But I'm thinking that it applies to only for the pure, very, very pure devotees. Otherwise, at our level, I think we have to think about that's also.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what
yes, that's true. Therefore, if we take the understanding that only the Yadus who were mixed had to go to Prabhas and do that, so we can, consider how mixed we may be, that some of these things may be useful. But at the same time, like I also said, being a pure devotee is also not some imaginably unattainable or high thing. If we're completely devoted and our real motivation in life is devotional service, even if we're not pure in the sense of being completely free from material desires, but at least if serving Krishna is our central and our main desire, then that's a kind of pure devotee. Just like, and Prabhupada one time said, he said, all of my devotees are pure devotees. So there's a very narrow kind of definition of pure devotee, and there's a broader definition of pure devotee. So we need to work out for ourselves and in consultation with friends and in consultation with devotees we trust. On a case-by-case basis, we may need to consider, how much of this do I need to pursue? How much of it don't I need to pursue? Yes, there's a whole spectrum of understanding on it. But at least if we understand philosophically that these things, even if I feel, okay, I'm not so pure, I don't want to be a debtor, so let me do those things. But we should never think that it's more important or as important as devotional service, or think that it's devotional service independently of actually serving Krishna. So even if we feel we may need to do those things, and some of them are fine. I mean, keep maintaining a relationship, taking care of your parents, even if they're not devotees. I think this is a good and admirable thing to do. And it's also a kind of preaching also, which makes it devotional service. So you're right that there is a spectrum of understanding and of how pure we are and how exclusively we can limit our activities to devotional service. So yes, that's definitely something to consider, something to think about. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
And okay, 9 o'clock. Thank you very much, everyone, for your very kind attention. As usual, it's always a pleasure for me to spend time associating with the Philadelphia devotees. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. All
Thank you
glories to
very
Srila Prabhupada.
सर्वस्य कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः.
Hare Krishna. Everyone have a wonderful